Okay, so you pulled together some really interesting sources for us this time. We're looking at Fred VanVleet, the Houston Rockets, and how they stack up against the Golden State Warriors.
That's right.
And our mission here really is to cut through the noise, pull out the most important bits from all that material, the stats, the analysis, everything.
Yeah, basically give you the core insights.
So you, the listener, can get up to speed fast on what Van Vliet brings and, the whole dynamic between these two teams out west.
Exactly. Think of it as the quick way to get smart on this specific matchup and VanVleet's role in it all. We've looked at game reports, stats, some deeper dives into team strategies, the works.
All right, let's start with Fred Van Vliet then. He's the point guard, the guy running the show for the Rockets. What really jumps out from the sources about his impact?
Well, first off, his story is pretty compelling, right? Undrafted to NBA champ with the Raptors, that tells you a lot about his resilience, his mindset.
Definitely speaks volumes.
But beyond that, the sources consistently hammer home his basketball IQ. Super high. Plus, his playmaking, how he orchestrates things, and interestingly, his defense. He's known for being really tenacious, despite, not being the biggest guy.
Right.
And for a young Rockets team, that veteran presence, that leadership, it comes up again and again as being just crucial.
And the Rockets themselves, they're in a fascinating spot. Lots of young talent, been rebuilding, but getting Van Vliet feels like they're hitting the gas a bit.
Oh, absolutely. It signals a shift. You look at the context provided. Bringing in a guy like Van Vliet, a proven winner, under a coach like Ime Udoka, it screams, we want to compete now.
Not just develop talent anymore.
Exactly. The sources suggest Udoka wants a more balanced approach, and Van Vliet is, well, kind of the engine for that on the court. Stability, direction for guys like Green and Shingun.
Okay, so then you've got the Warriors. The dynasty, maybe not at its peak, but still led by Steph Curry, still incredibly dangerous.
Precisely. They're navigating maybe a different phase, but that offensive firepower, still there. The sources are crystal clear. It all revolves around Curry's gravity, his shooting.
Unbelievable shooting.
Right. So when these teams play, it's this really interesting clash. Different timelines, different goals almost.
Established power versus the up-and-comer with a new veteran leader. So let's dig into Van Vliet's game a bit more. Offensive orchestration. What does that actually look like on the court, according to the sources?
It means he's basically the quarterback out there. High IQ, like we said, great court vision. The sources show him making smart reads, delivering the ball where it needs to go.
Setting guys up.
Yeah, and specifically, he's really effective in the pick and roll. He can score off the screen himself for sure, but maybe more importantly, he makes those pinpoint passes hitting the roll man or finding the open shooter spotting up.
He creates advantages.
Exactly. The sources even mentioned tracking things like his assist numbers, potential assists, offensive rating when he's on the floor, trying to quantify that impact. Like, apparently, the Rockets get way more open threes when he's running the point.
Okay, that makes sense. He's the playmaker first. But he can score, too, right? He's not just pass first.
Correct. The sources definitely confirm that he's a very capable scorer, got that reliable three ball, and he's not afraid to attack the rim either.
Finds his spots.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the emphasis on his shot selection. The info suggests he really understands when to look for his own shot versus getting others involved. Usually takes good shots, high percentage looks. You'd see that in his points per game, his shooting percentages, if you dug into those.
Okay, offense covered. Now, defensively, the sources paint him as, super tenacious, especially for his size. How's he pull that off?
Well, it comes back to that IQ, doesn't it? And anticipation. The sources highlight how he uses his smarts, his strength, because he is strong to disrupt things.
Quick hands, too.
Yeah, quick hands, good positioning. He gets steals, deflections. He can really bother opposing point guards. And the communication aspect comes up a lot, too. He's vocal back there, directing traffic, setting the defensive tone. You'd look at stuff like his defensive rating, maybe opponent shooting numbers when he's the primary defender to see that impact.
And beyond the stats, there's that veteran presence thing. It's kind of intangible, but sounds like it's huge for this Rockets team.
Oh, absolutely huge. I mean, think about it. He's won a championship. He knows what it takes. That experience, that knowledge, you can't just teach that.
Sure.
And the sources mention reports of him actively mentoring the young guys, Jalen Green, Shingun, sharing that understanding of what winning in the NBA requires. That's invaluable for a team trying to figure things out.
It's interesting, too. The sources brought up comparisons to guys who aren't point guards, like Jimmy Butler or Steven Adams. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, that was insightful. It's about understanding value beyond the traditional position stats, right?
Yeah.
Like, Butler isn't a point guard, but his leadership, his two-way impact, it just lifts the whole team. The sources suggest VanVleet has some of that same quality influencing the game in ways beyond just assists and points.
Adams?
Similar idea. Adams brings that physicality, that veteran know-how, that presence, even if he's not scoring 20 a game. So these comparisons help show VanVleet's worth is broader than just being a point guard. It's about his overall effect on winning.
Gotcha. Though you'd still compare him to other point guards too, presumably.
Oh, for sure. Direct comparisons to guys with similar skill sets would definitely help pinpoint his exact strengths and maybe weaknesses within that role.
Makes sense. Okay, we've got a good handle on VanVleet's contribution to Houston. Now let's shift to those Warriors matchups. We all know the offense, Steph Curry. What makes it so hard to stop year after year?
Well, it starts with Curry, obviously. His shooting range is just unreal, and his movement without the ball, that constant motion, puts immense stress on defenses.
Creates chaos.
Total chaos. Forces tough decisions, opens things up for everyone else. But it's not just Curry, right? The system, it's the ball movement, the spacing, guys like Klay Thompson, Draymond Green facilitating. It's a machine.
Yeah.
And looking at Curry's numbers specifically against the Rockets, like his scoring, his threes, it just highlights the massive challenge. He creates so much attention that others get easier looks.
So, okay, how do the Rockets even try to slow that down? What kind of defensive game plan could they possibly use?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The sources point to a few things. You have to be aggressive on Curry. Maybe double teams, traps, try to get the ball out of his hands.
Risky, though.
Very risky, because then you rely on disciplined, fast rotations to cover the other shooters. That's crucial. Plus, limiting transition points, the Warriors thrive there, and crashing the defensive glass, no second chances.
And VanVleet's role in all this?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. Whether he's guarding Curry directly, which is a nightmare assignment, or maybe another key guy, his defensive IQ, his communication, they're leaning heavily on that. He has to be locked in.
The individual matchups seem critical here, especially VanVleet versus Curry. What are the key things to watch in that battle?
Well, it's a fascinating contrast. You're watching how VanVleet tries to defend Curry. Can he stay attached, fight over screens, contest without fouling? That's huge.
And on the other end?
Yeah. How does Curry attack VanVleet? Try to use his quickness, maybe exploit any size difference. And then you compare their offensive numbers when they're directly matched up who's winning those minutes.
Makes sense. And it's not just them, obviously.
Right. The sources remind us, how do the Rockets' wings handle Klay or Wiggins? How does Schengen deal with Draymond or Looney? Those other matchups matter a lot, too.
Okay. Offensively for the Rockets.
Yeah.
They got to score too, right? Can't just hope to hold the Warriors to 90 points. What's their approach against that Golden State defense?
Yeah, exactly. They need precision execution. The sources suggest really leaning on VanVleet's playmaking to create good looks, trying to find and exploit any mismatches the Warriors' defense gives them.
Pace control, maybe.
Pace control could be key, yeah. Don't let the Warriors get into that fast-paced flow where they just rain threes, and getting Schengen involved inside, getting points in the paint, that provides balance, stops them from being too jump shot reliant.
Sounds like these games could be pretty wild. High scoring, momentum swings. How do we get a feel for how they might play out?
That's a good point. The sources do indicate these games often have runs, big swings. Looking at past games, seeing when those swings happened, was it a flurry of threes, a bunch of turnovers? That gives you clues.
Key factors to watch them.
Definitely three-point shooting percentages for both sides, turnovers, who takes care of the ball better, and rebounding battles are always big. When you're trying to predict future games, like the sources suggest, you've got to factor in current form, injuries, obviously, and just how they've matched up head-to-head historically.
Right, right. And finally, just pulling back a bit, these games don't happen in a vacuum. There's the whole NBA season, the Western Conference playoff picture. Where do these Rockets-Warriors games fit in?
Well, every game counts, especially in the West, right? It's always so competitive. These head-to-head matchups can directly impact seeding, tiebreakers, potential playoff paths down the line.
Big implications.
Yeah. So this deep dive, like the sources imply, kind of gives us a snapshot of where things stand in, say, 2025.
Yeah.
Shows how competitive the West is, how these team dynamics play into that bigger story.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it feels pretty clear Fred VanVleet is just, well, central to what the Rockets are doing right now. He's way more than just the point guard.
Definitely. Floor general, scorer when needed, tough defender, veteran leader.
Yeah.
All of it.
He checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
And then you put him up against the Warriors, and it's this classic clash, isn't it? The
Yeah.
established champs trying to stay on top, the young team trying to climb fast with their new leader.
Exactly. And that Van Vliet-Curry matchup is right at the heart of it. It really highlights those different team-building approaches and where each team is in its journey.
So, something for you, the listener, to chew on. What are the long-term ripples of Van Vliet being in Houston? Is he the guy, the catalyst, to push them into being real contenders year after year in that tough West?
Mm-hmm.
And flip side, how long can the Warriors keep this up? Even with Curry being Curry, the lead changes fast. Is their dominance sustainable against all these rising teams? How do these dynamics keep shaping the NBA? Lots to think about there.